Hi, everyone. This is Jim. My name is Jim Dulanbakis from Open Sky Events. Thank you all for joining us. This is our fourth Cigar and Spirit event. Today's guests are Alec Rubin from Alec Bradley and Tracie Franklin from William Grant, U.S. Brand Ambassador of Glenfiddich. First, we're going to bring on Alec Rubin. Alec, please join.
Hey
Alec,
Jimmy, how
how
you
are you, my
doing?
friend?
I'm
How's
doing
it going?
fantastic. And yourself?
Very good, very good. What's happening? Are you in the office right now?
I'm in the office. How about you? It looks like you at home.
Yeah, I'm in a side room.
It works.
It's the quarantine life, right?
Luckily,
Um,
we've been able to get back to work, so quarantine hasn't been so bad down here, but it was for definitely for a couple months.
and you're based in Miami,
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to come back to that, but first I wanted to say thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on. I definitely want to just like hear about your story, who you are, and the brand, and also the products that you guys are producing. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Alec Rubin from Alec Bradley Cigars. What's the story, and who are you?
So I've been pretty fortunate. My father, has had this business for almost 25 years now, and I have always loved being around it. I grew up sitting in the backyard with my dad, asking him questions about business constantly. I kind of just fell in love with business from a young age. And as time went on, we would like basically every night after dinner, my dad would go in the backyard and smoke samples. And I go back and sit back there with him and just ask him questions, ask him about tobacco, ask him about business. And once I turned 18, I started smoking cigars. And probably within a few weeks after that, I knew this is something I wanted to do, something I was passionate about. And fast forward to today, I'm 28 years old and I've been doing this for about 6, 7 years and love every minute of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your first cigar that you had. You said you were 18.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
18.
So tell us about that. What happened the night? Was it a night or was it a day? Whatever the story is, I want to hear it.
Yeah. So the night I turned 18, after we celebrated or whatever it was, my dad and I went into the backyard and I lit up my first cigar, which was a Max. We still make that today, and one of our core products. Um, and I wouldn't say I fell in love with smoking cigars the first time that I did it. I fell in love with the idea of it, probably
Yeah.
at that time, but probably within a few weeks, I was smoking, every day to every other day. And I mean, now it's how many cigars am I smoking a day?
So, well, how many are you smoking a day?
I don't, it could be from, depending on how busy we are, it could be from two. And if we're blending, it could be 10. So
Yeah.
it really just depends on the day.
Awesome. And so again, like cigars, it's an acquired taste. So the first
Mm-hmm.
time you taste it might be a little harsh. It might be a little strange, right, to your
Mm-hmm.
taste buds and whatnot. But I like that you said that you fell in love with the process of having a cigar, right? The experience, right? What do you mean by that?
So a lot of my friends laugh at me, or just a lot of people within the company laugh at me because I say like the way that my process, I say it's like a bit romantic because I have a very I do the same thing every time. I either cut or light my cigar. I usually have a whiskey with me, and I generally use a soft or standard flame when lighting my cigar, just because it takes a little bit more time. It's part of the process, and it's just something I enjoy. When we're blending and stuff like that, I'll probably use a torch just because I'm kind of moving. But when I'm smoking to enjoy myself, I have a full process. Like I said, I usually have a whiskey with me. I'll punch my cigar and light it with that soft flame.
So you punch your cigars, you don't cut them.
I mean, if I don't have a punch, I use my nails. I'll cut it. I'll bite it. Whatever it takes to get the job done. But
So years ago, people used to bite the cigars, right?
mhm.
I mean, a long time ago. All right. So tell me about, your what is it about a cigar, right, that you enjoy? Now you take time, right? You light it
Mhm.
slowly and you enjoy it, but like, what is it about the cigar that makes it special or gives you that?
Well, there's a lot of things about cigars in general that I think are very special. One thing is that Just the flavor. I mean, I love building up my palate and expanding it and learning it every single day. So smoking really allows you to do that, and you get the flavors from the cigar from, you know, the first third to the last third. The other thing is when you're smoking a cigar, I kind of feel like you're never alone because you're just lost in thought a little bit, and just gives you that time to yourself that a lot of other things don't give you. But at the same time, if you walk into a cigar store without knowing anybody and sit down, light up a cigar, within 20 minutes, you're probably talking to the guy, you know, next to you or on the other side of the bar, or whatever it may be. So for me, it's time for myself. It's, you know, building my palate, and then it's also a socialization aspect.
I love that. I agree, and I think most importantly, this in today's world, fast paced world, so many distractions, so many things going on to distract you in your day. The cigar is like a focus tool,
Hmm.
right? It focuses you on just anything, and it
Yeah.
creates pleasure because you can't rush a cigar. You're going to smoke, and you know you need at least 45 minutes to an hour, unless you're trying to smoke really quickly. But no one smokes a cigar in 10 minutes, right? At
No.
least I don't know anybody that does that. And I think that's what it is. It buys time. It allows you to enjoy it.
Hmm.
So what are you drinking? Are you drinking something? What are you?
Yeah. I opened up a bottle of Glenfiddich. Hold on, let me put that. Glenfiddich 14.
Oh, you know, it looks just like the one I have. Look at that.
Very similar, except
Yeah,
you're
very
not drinking
similar.
it yet. So,
I am actually.
okay.
I've been sipping right here.
Oh,
I've had
actually,
the.
I saw that. I forgot. I did see that.
So, Alec, let's talk about the history of Alec Bradley.
Hmm.
Your dad started it 25 years ago. What
Yeah.
made your dad get into cigar business, especially
So,
25 years ago, which I don't know if it was super attractive back then, or was cigars the thing 25 years ago?
so if you go back even a little bit further than that, my great grandfather owned a wholesale candy and tobacco business in Canarsie,
Okay.
and he did that for 15 or 20 years. And my grandfather worked with him. My grandfather got married to my grandmother. They came down to Florida on their honeymoon, and they never left. So,
Oh,
yeah, never left. So, my grandfather was in the cabinet business and then ended up in the fastener business. So, like nuts, bolts, and screws. And my dad worked with him doing that. And so, my dad helped him grow the business, absolutely hated everything about it, was not for him at all. Sold the business. And in the last few weeks that they were there, one of the people he worked with said to him, "So what are you going to do next?" And he basically said, "I have absolutely no clue. I'm going to take a little bit of time, figure it out." And he said, "Well, you smoke cigars from 7 a.m. when you get in here till 8 o'clock at night when you leave. Why don't you think about getting in the cigar business?" And so I guess he probably just thought about it a little bit. Ended up going to his tobacconist where he, you know, bought cigars from daily, weekly, whatever it may have been, and said, is there a trade show for this?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely. It's in a month." And he said, may I come with you?" And he took him with him. And from like the second he walked, he always says the second he walked in the door, he fell in love with the entire industry. He always loved cigars, but there was something about the industry he fell in love with. Manufacturers, talking to different manufacturers, being friends and talking to each other, everyone around having a great time, and just the camaraderie of all of it. He absolutely fell in love with, and then opened up Alec Bradley in 1996.
wow, awesome.
Yeah.
And what is the what's the history? What's the story behind the name Alec Bradley?
So
Is
my
there an
name,
Alec? Is there a person named Alec Bradley that's in the family?
no, so most people think my father's name is Alec Bradley, and they think that I'm probably just Junior or the second or whatever it is. But he named it after me and my brother. I'm Alec, my brother's Bradley, and he says he named it after us for a few reasons. One is he said that his grandfather or my grandfather always told him, start with your company with the letter A, so it's at the beginning of the yellow pages.
That's a genius. Very very smart.
Yep.
Sure.
The second reason was because I think my dad was in elementary school, and he saw my grandfather's truck that said, I think it was Princess Cabinets at the time, but it said Gloria Allen Industries. And so when he got home from school, he asked my grandfather, "What's Gloria Allen Industries?" And he said, "Well, we both took our youngest child and named it after the two of them." So obviously, my father's name is Alan. The other guy's daughter's name was Gloria, so it was Gloria Allen Industries. So he wanted to kind of give us that same feeling, so he named it Alec Bradley. And then the third reason is because if he felt like he named it after his sons, then he would be held to a higher standard when it came to making business decisions.
That's true. 100%. I agree. That's very inspirational, I have to say. Now, growing up, my question to you is, and to your brother is, growing up with now both your names are on this company. Did you feel obligated to join the company, or did your father just basically kind of lay back and just kind of did his thing and never really pressured you guys?
He didn't pressure us to ever smoke cigars. He didn't pressure us to do anything. He said, "Find what you're passionate about and go do that. And if that's outside cigars, great. Like, go be in insurance. If you love whiskey, go be in whiskey. If like whatever it may be, go find what you absolutely love and go do that." And he knew from probably the time I was 18, 19 that I was going to get into the business. But he didn't know until 2 weeks before Bradley started that Bradley had any interest into coming into the business. Neither did I. He basically was graduating college, and we're like, "Bradley, what are you doing?" And because none of us know, we were all kind of just like questioning each other, like, "Hey, has Brad said what he wants to do?" And he said, "What do you mean? I'm joining the company." I'm like, "Well, you could have made that obvious to any of us because none of us knew that."
And how is it? And again, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've owned a couple different businesses, and I'm interested in always the history, especially the family businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother comes in, you both work together, your dad's still involved. How does that dynamic work? Like, how are you able to deal with, everyone involved? Because it's not just a partner or employee. You
Mm-hmm.
guys are family,
So when I came in versus when Bradley came in were two very different things because we both kind of worked here during the summers in the warehouse. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry about that. We both kind of worked here in the summers, packing boxes in the back and all that kind of stuff. And then I was working part-time while I was still in school. And so I was here 5 days a week, but only part-time. And then right when I graduated college, I just transitioned from, part-time to full-time. So my dad and I already had a certain working relationship that progressed over a certain amount of time. As where when Bradley came in, it was kind of just very abrupt and not the easiest thing necessarily in the world because Bradley and I are brothers and we fight. So when he decided to come in, it was we were basically at each other's throats for the first 6 months. It was very interesting. Jimmy, are you there?
Hi guys, sorry about that.
Lost you there.
Yeah, I lost you too. Okay, so you were saying there was two different times.
Yeah.
You joined and your brother joined, right?
Yeah. So I was just saying that when I came in, it was kind of like a gradual process because I was working part-time and then transitioned into full-time. So my father and I already had this working relationship that kind of progressed slowly. And then when Bradley came in, it was just very abrupt and all at once. And because Bradley and I are brothers, we fight, we constantly. So for the first 6 months, I would say, no, maybe for the first year, we were at each other's throats pretty much every single day.
Pretty standard stuff when two brothers partner.
Yeah.
I owned the business with my brother, and not that we fought. It's just it's hard. There's a vision with the company, and as much as what I think really helps is outlining the tasks, right? The
Mhm.
responsibilities, and just saying you're handling this, and then you just give everyone the space that they need, you know?
Yeah, so the nice thing is that Bradley and I both are passionate about everything within the business, but there's things that he's a little bit more focused on than I am. So he's really good at concepting with new projects when it comes to new cigars that we're going to come out with, and I love being down at the factories and blending. So it's a kind of we both have to agree on everything, and we both do both parts. But he kind of leads that effort a little bit more, and I lead the blending effort a little bit more,
Right.
which is nice.
Absolutely.
Because when we were coming out with our first cigar, Blind Faith, we were both trying to do everything, and it was not a pretty sight.
So any words of wisdom for family-owned businesses?
Figure out what everyone is good at, and then separate those responsibilities. And you'll still fight and bicker over what the other one is doing, but at least it sets a clear path as to what everyone's responsibilities are.
Right. And also maybe even talking about the vision of the company, right? Making sure everyone's on the same page
Yeah.
on the grand scope of things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the history. So your dad started it. Both you and your brother come on. How did you guys grow the business? How did you become one of the best cigar companies in the country? Like how did all that happen?
So that's like kind of two different parts a little bit.
Yeah.
What Bradley and I have done to grow with ourselves within the company and the industry is we came up with our own company called Alec and Bradley Cigars. The only difference is an ampersand, basically. But my father has always said to the two of us, you have two options. You can either be Alan Rubin's sons within the industry, or you can be Alec and Bradley. So we chose to go the route of being Alec and Bradley and starting our own company that's kind of a sister company to Alec Bradley. And then honestly, in terms of how we grew, I want to say it was a lot of work and a lot of luck, because my father came into the industry toward the end of the cigar boom, or basically after it. It was in the 80s to mid 90s, and my dad didn't enter until 96. So he was at the very tail end. And in that time, there was well over 200 companies that were established or that were started in that time frame. And of those 200 companies, I'd say there might be 20 left. So he had some innovative ideas. He had some crazy ideas. Did everything he had to do to make it work. He launched Tracie at one point, which was the first triangle cigar on the market. He when he came out with Max, every single size retailed at $5. So whether you were getting a Robusto or a Gordo, they were both $5. And actually, Max was one of the first cigars that was all kind of larger ring gauges. So it was just about being different, standing out, doing things that were a little bit innovative in a not really innovative industry. Because I mean, cigar rolling has been the same for I don't know how many years at this point, hundreds of years. And I think that the mixture of those things is what's led him to the success he's had and the ability to still be around.
That's awesome. And I just want to jump in and say the Max brand, I actually, you guys were one of our partners for our Boats and Smoke cigar
Mm-hmm.
cruise out of New York.
Yeah.
We had the Max brand for that, and people loved it. And I just think, there's definitely different levels of cigar industry, right? You have like your retail, you have your
Mm-hmm.
premium, you have your special editions. And what's great about it is there's a place for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're joining in, you might not be able to spend the big bucks on the big ones. There's great cigars for retail. So tell me about the line that you guys have, the different types of products. We went over Max, you talked about Trilogy.
Within Alec Bradley or Alec and Bradley?
Both, whichever one you want to talk about.
Yeah, so with Alec Bradley, there's a vast portfolio, somewhere around 20 different lines, give or take. And we kind of try to do a little bit of everything, but with our spin. So we try to be at several different price points. We try to be at several different profiles, but it always has to be our spin on it. So if you smoke our Alec Bradley Connecticut, let's say, a lot of Connecticut's out there are more on the mild side, and we made a very flavorful medium body Connecticut because everything that we do is always flavor first. It's always flavor forward. Because there are cigars out there that are very heavy in terms of strength, but when you add strength, you tend to lose a little bit of flavor. So everything we do is always flavor forward. We always try to give the customer the best experience for their dollar, and that's kind of everything behind what we do. Awesome. And then for Alec and Bradley, it's more the experimental arm of Alec Bradley, the more I guess you would say more boutique side of Alec Bradley. And we just try to do off the wall blends that are nothing like Alec Bradley at all. And the packaging is off the walls a little bit. And our focus is just to be as creative as we possibly can and have a good time doing it.
Awesome. Do what you love, right? It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So tell me about so you have the offshoot of Alec Bradley, which is you guys. The first I see we have first release Blind Faith, second release Gateway. Let's talk about the Gatekeeper. Yep. I actually have the Gatekeeper here.
That's what I'm smoking right now.
This was fantastic. Very nice. So tell me about these brands.
So Blind Faith was mine and Bradley's first line that we came out with. We actually, it was a year-long process because we actually were working on a different name with different artwork at the time, but the idea for the blend was always the same. But at the last minute, we both decided that that the old project was not the right way to go, and we kind of just restarted and decided on Blind Faith for the name because people had to have blind faith that Bradley and I knew what we were doing.
I like that.
Yeah, from our father, who basically told us, if you're coming out with your own company, then you're paying for your full production, to the retailers that knew Alec Bradley and know our dad and kind of know us from our travels, but they don't know our palate. So they had to have blind faith to bring the product in to the consumers that had to have blind faith to pick it up. So we just thought it was a very fitting name. And as I mentioned before, when you add strength to a cigar, you tend to lose flavor. And when you add flavor, you tend to lose strength. So our goal was to hit this very happy medium between strength and flavor on Blind Faith. And we did some kind of crazy things to achieve that by having all Ligeros and Maduros in the filler, which is a nightmare because of burn quality issues that you could have. But we wanted to be a little bit dangerous on our first release because we thought this one needs to make a statement. And then with Gatekeeper, Bradley came to me and he wanted to do something in the Dominican Republic because Alec Bradley only has one product that comes out of the Dominican Republic, and it's a bundled product. So we wanted to bring a new flavor and new experience to our consumers. And so he came to me and said, I think we should do something in the Dominican. And I said, great, who would you want to work with? And he said, Ernesto Perez Carrillo. And I said, absolutely. I love Ernesto. He's a great guy. Why don't you give him a call and let's get this done? And he said, no, you call him. I said, I just said to him, he's the nicest guy in the world. I'll give you his number right now. Give him a call. And he goes, I would, but honestly, I've never met him. I'm a little bit intimidated I've seen his pictures. He looks like, a little bit of a scary guy. I don't want to call him. And I just said to him, you're talking about the biggest teddy bear I've ever met in my life. But I'm going to be seeing him in like 2 or 3 weeks at an event. I'll talk to him then. And so I went to the event, talked to him. He said, absolutely, yes. I'll do this project with you as long as your father's not involved. Kind of joking, obviously, because my father and Ernesto have a great relationship. And so we started working on the project. He kind of got the direction we were going for right away in terms of the blend. We could not figure out a name to save our lives. And then Bradley came up with Gatekeeper because he said Ernesto is kind of our gatekeeper at this moment, because doing a cigar with him will open up so many doors, because he just has such an amazing reputation within this industry. And if you look at the band, it's actually a male Medusa head, of which I'm sure people know Medusa is a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the whole thought process behind the project.
That's fantastic. Awesome. And how was the releases? How did the products, what was the reaction to the product, to the two brands that came out?
So Blind Faith was a little bit tougher because, as I mentioned, we had to pay for our entire production ourselves. And with that, my father also said that he was only going to allocate us 4 pairs of rollers. So we were only able to produce so much product, which definitely made it tough. So we had a decision to make. Do we sell it to everyone out there and maybe not be able to fill orders if they want to place an order again? Or do we pick a certain amount of accounts and only sell it to those accounts to start and then open it up later?
Like a sample distribution, right?
Yeah. So we chose 150 accounts nationwide, and we only opened it up to 150 accounts, which definitely, I would say, hurt the launch a little bit because we just weren't able to get it into everyone's hands. But it was definitely a good learning experience for us. And the cigar is phenomenal. It sells well in those stores. We've been opening up more accounts with it, and people are loving it. But Gatekeeper, Ernesto said, you can have as many rollers as you want. You can get as many cigars as you want. And we did a full launch with it, and it paid off immediately. We saw the difference in the numbers and interaction on social media and all of that kind of stuff because we were able to get it into as many hands as possible.
So, and then there's one other cigar. I'm going to mess this up. Kintsugi?
Kintsugi, yeah.
I said it right? Okay.
Yeah, you were on the money.
Okay.
So Kintsugi is our next release that we're coming out with, and we're just about done with the project. Obviously, with coronavirus, this factory shut down, and we were supposed to start production right when coronavirus was kind of starting within the United States, and our factories had to shut down. So production has started now. We're working on it now, but basically, what Kintsugi is this Japanese art form of taking broken pottery, so whether it be bowls or vases, whatever it may be, and piecing it back together with gold lacquer. And it's kind of about the beauty and the imperfections.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned how COVID has stalled the third release.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with the industry with COVID-19 and the impact that's having on the cigar industry?
So unfortunately, it's really hurting our brick and mortar partners right now. The nice thing is I have not heard of any of our partners that are shutting down because of it. Some of them are definitely struggling because of it, and it slowed down business, but I have not heard of anyone shutting down. So we've done everything within our power to help out our partners at brick and mortar to make sure that they're healthy. I've had calls with several retailers at this point, trying to see what we could do for them to help them survive and thrive and all that kind of stuff. So it's been tough, definitely with our retail partners, but we were actually very fortunate on our side because we received 2 giant containers from Central America 2 days before everything shut down.
Oh, wow.
So we were able to supply anyone that needed any product, which over a 2-month span. And we had basically one person in each department here, so that no one was kind of close to each other. And we had we were only shipping 2 days a week, just to make sure everyone was taken care of, trying to keep everyone kind of out of the office, but still making sure things were flowing. And it was definitely a tough time. I spent a lot of time at home trying to learn how to work from home, which is, you have to be very disciplined. It's not the easiest thing in the world. But we're coming out of it now. We've been back in the office for 3 weeks, and luckily things are kind of back to normal at this point for us. And in terms of our territory managers that are on the road, I believe as of today, all of them are back on the road pretty much. And
what's your take on people working from home? Do you think that business is going to transform a bit, where some people will be working from home and others will be working in the office?
So I think for sure in some industries, people are saying that you don't necessarily need to be in an office to get business done, and that some companies are going to be scaling back on their office spaces and going to have more people working from home. But for us, we definitely need to be here. There's a collaborative effort that takes place when we're all here together, and we definitely lost that a little bit working from home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about upcoming, like, cigar events, and so your retail partners are, slowly they're going to come back on, right? Some states are opening up sooner than others.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you promoting your products? Like, how is the cigar industry going to promote their products to the consumer? At least for the next year, because a lot of the events have been canceled or postponed.
So as you know, with cigars, we can't advertise on TV. So our print media and some social media are our only avenues, but really doing things like this is kind of different and new, and it lets us tell our story to a group of consumers that we probably wouldn't reach otherwise. And although I travel a lot, my brother travels a lot, and we meet a lot of people face to face and get to talk to everyone for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, to get to know them and for them to get to know us. Doing stuff like this really gives us the opportunity to get our story out there, and it's been different but very nice at the same time that we have this ability to do this.
And do you think some of these events are going to come back? And if they do, will they be different?
I think they'll come back. I do not think they'll be different. I think once things get back to normal a little bit, they'll be the same size. I think maybe some people will be wearing masks. Some people won't, depending on the laws within your state. But I think they'll all come back pretty much. I don't think we're going to lose any of them.
Yeah, so I like this year alone, I'm probably not going to have an event, maybe in the fall. Mm-hmm. Luckily for me, it's a rooftop. I do a lot of rooftop and boat events, which are all outdoors. They're going to have to be structured differently, where my thoughts are people reserve areas within their group. So if you're coming with a group of 4, you have a certain section to yourself that's separated from others. And there's a waiter that comes, but maybe they have gloves and a mask or whatever. Who knows what the new normal will be.
Or maybe they reserve time slots.
Right. They reserve a time slot. They get an hour or 2 hours time slot. And then afterwards, another group comes in. Yeah. Same thing with the retail shops, right? Maybe the retail shops, you have to make an appointment to go to the retail shop, which is strange. But, for the safety, I guess, in the beginning, that's what's going to have to happen.
Which is so sad for cigar shops, because, I mean, I feel like a lot of people meet their buddies in cigar shops. You can move to a new city, walk into a cigar shop. By the end of the day, you have 3 new friends that you're going to go out and do something with on the weekend.
It's true. I always said, like, if I walked into a bar and sat let's say I didn't know you, and I sat next to you, and I say, hey, what are you drinking? And you're like, I'm drinking Glenfiddich 14.
I wouldn't talk to you, Jimmy. Come on.
You wouldn't talk to me?
No, I'm joking.
No, you might not. You might
I
tell
would.
me what you're drinking.
My favorite thing about going to cigar shops is meeting new people.
No, what I'm saying, you're at a bar, not a cigar shop. And you go, you're not going to talk to me. But at a cigar shop, by the time we're done, we've talked about life, politics, science, space. Yeah. We've talked about everything.
Everything.
And it's only been an hour and a half.
The world's problems are always solved in a cigar shop.
Always. You know what? They really, honestly, they should just, like, think tanks should just show up at cigar shops and just go in and ask for advice, right? And everyone would give it for free. They don't need to do anything, Yeah,
everyone wants to be heard in a cigar shop. Let's be honest.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about personality. Do you have any personalities in the cigar shop? Is there like a usual? Is there like a couple different personalities that hang out at cigar shops that you know of?
Well, there's a couple. There's the average guy that's just there to have a good time, smoke a cigar, get to know people.
Okay.
There's a guy in the corner on his laptop with his giant headphones on, working for 8 hours.
What is he? Where is he? Who does he work for? What does
I
he
have
do?
no clue.
What does he do?
I think a lot of them are like day traders or stuff like
Okay.
that. I honestly have no clue.
Okay.
I'm just making that up, honestly.
Okay. No, I love it.
And then there's the loud guy in the cigar shop that wants everyone else to hear him.
Everybody. And he talks about everything. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
There's
doesn't
no
care. Yeah. Oh no. And if someone's having a conversation, 5 seats down, 3 seats down, whatever it is, he's chiming into those conversations also. And depending on where you are, like what city, what state you're in, sometimes there's like 7 of those guys. Yeah. And they're all just yelling at each other across the room. That's my favorite, because then I chime in and I become that guy also, and I just start yelling back.
What about the old timers, the guys that just been smoking for 40 years and they know everything,
That's the best.
They complain about the way you smoke, right?
They complain about what you're smoking, the way you're smoking, how cigars are different now, but also they're a wealth of knowledge, and they're fun to listen to because they have amazing stories. And I just sit there, shut up, and listen, honestly, because that's half the fun being there, is just listening to other people talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That was a good
Alec,
question. I like that one.
No, I mean, I've been thinking about that because, like, for me, it's all about the humor. And every time I go into a cigar shop, number one, why is the people behind the counter at the cigar shops not that friendly? Is it just like a national thing, or am I just going into the wrong cigar shops? Like, they don't smile, a lot of them.
It's not a national thing. It just kind of depends on the cigar shop. I mean, like we just said, if you have 7 guys with the big personality coming in and bugging the clerk for 6 hours a day, they're going to be tired at the end of the day. But no, most guys that I meet going into like clerks that I meet going into cigar shops are happy to help you. They have a great amount of knowledge on all the products in there, and I think that they just want to be asked the right questions.
Correct.
I think they just want to have people come in and ask them questions versus telling them everything that they know about cigars. Because these guys do have a great amount of information. They've probably been doing it for a while, and they're there to help. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what's the coolest thing that you've seen at a cigar shop? Like, I've seen, barber chairs. I've seen shoe shining, which is pretty cool around and stuff. Have you seen anything like out there, or something cool that ever stuck out in the shop?
I mean, I've seen it. I don't think anything crazy sticks out. I've seen like, let's see. There's nothing really crazy. Like lottery machine. Like there's nothing too crazy. My favorite thing is the barber chair.
The barber chair.
Yeah, I love it because I love being able to smoke while I get my hair cut. That's the coolest thing in the world to me.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, I've seen slot machines and stuff like that. I mean, that's always fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I like seeing slot machines in a cigar shop. I think that's always fun.
Awesome.
It just depends on the state, obviously.
Yeah. So, Alec, is there anything else that you wanna? We're about to bring on Tracie in a minute. But is there anything else you want to talk about, the brand or the company, or your background? Anything you want to tell the guests?
I just want to say to everyone, support your local brick and mortars right now. They're all hurting. They're all struggling. Get out to them, or even if you can go on to Yelp and leave them a positive review, or Google and leave them a positive review. Do whatever you can to help, because they're struggling a little bit right now, and you're going to appreciate when they're still there when this whole thing is over. So, I mean, if we have Tracie here right now, she's way better than I am. I think we should bring her on.
All right, let's bring on Tracie.
Here we go.
Hello.
Ah!
Hey, Tracie.
Hello. All right, let's see. Now we get to see what that looks like.
Well, Tracie, we're going to bump me and Alec are going to jump off. I just wanted to introduce you and say thanks for coming on. Tracie, you're representing Glenn Fittich.
Yes.
So you're going to make a couple cocktails here. Alex and I are going to jump off and come back in just a few minutes. I wanted to give you the stage. Thank you. A wonderful display. This looks fantastic. And the floor is all yours, okay?
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Tracie Franklin. I'm the Glenfiddich ambassador for the US, and I am going to talk to you about the Glenfiddich 14. So I have Glenfiddich 12 and 15 here too, so if you have questions about any of those, just let me know. But we're focused on the 14 today. So 14 is aged for 14 years in ex-bourbon barrels, and then finished in new American oak casks. So we're bringing in a lot of that beautiful toffee, vanilla, caramel flavors. I love it. It's a 43%, so it's just a little bit higher than our usually our 12 or our 15. So I wanted to put in a cocktail for you. Now, I really enjoy cigars, and I like things that have a lot of chocolate to them, like those really beautiful earthy notes to the cigars. So I thought by turning the 14 into a Rob Roy, which is just a Manhattan made with scotch, I know, that we would be able to really bring out some of the rich fruit that's in the Glenfiddich, and that would complement my cigar choice. So I know that Alec is making this at home, so I can't wait to see his cocktail. But we're going to start, as you should, with the Glenfiddich 14. Now, some of you are probably at home going, no, why is she making a cocktail? Well, I'm doing it because cocktails are delicious. Now, when you are using a high-quality whiskey, like a scotch or a single malt, of course, I do recommend making a cocktail that's fewer ingredients, so you're really highlighting the spirit. So the goal for this is that we're going to use really lovely ingredients, all high quality, so that we're enhancing the Glenfiddich. And we're going to give you just another way to enjoy it while you are sipping on that cigar. So I'm going to go with 2 parts of the Glenfiddich 14. We're going to have a vermouth. Now, you've seen vermouths before. This is a Dolan vermouth. I like it because it's a little bit drier with a little bit of spice, sort of like cranberry fruit to it, and doesn't overpower the cocktail. Some vermouths for me can be a little bit rich. So I'm going to put a half part of that vermouth. Now, one of the things you guys probably hear me saying is Glenfiddich, Glenfiddich, Glenfiddich. Ah! So Glen means valley in Gaelic, and Fiddich, right? That's spitty, Fiddich. A lot of my friends from New York can do it better than I can. That means deer. So Glenfiddich is valley of the deer. Yeah, so now you can tell all your friends that say Glenfiddich. You can either tell them the way it's pronounced, or you can just let them say it the way they want. It's totally fine. As long as they're calling for it, I don't care. Glenfiddich, Glenfiddich, it's fine. So we are I just put a half part of, actually I put a little bit less. I put almost a quarter, a little over a quarter, maybe a third part of the ruby port. So I'm enhancing even more that red fruit that's going to be a part of this cocktail. I'm going to add some bitters. So bitters are your salt and pepper for a cocktail. I have Angostura bitters. I have these wonderful bitter cube bitters, which are actually created just to enhance the flavors of the Glenfiddich 14. So they really bring out sort of citrus notes and a little bit of that vanilla. So I'm going to actually go with this. But if you have Angostura, I do 2 to 3 dashes of the Angostura. I also have this really cute cherry bark vanilla. So if we wanted to do that, we would add a little bit. Actually, the cherry and the vanilla are both going to be a part of this cocktail. So maybe I will do that. All right. So Glenfiddich is a family-owned company. We are 5th generation family owned. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of the companies, especially the whiskey distilleries in Scotland, have been bought out. They belong to larger conglomerates, but Glenfiddich, Balvenie, and Monkey Shoulder, which you might know, are all owned by William Grant & Sons. Founded in 1887 by William Grant, still owned by the Grant family today. All right, let's put some ice in there. So you might not have a stirring pitcher or mixing jar at home. That's absolutely okay. You can put it in a pint glass. You can put it in the bottom of your shakers. And because all you want to do is just make sure that you're stirring so that we're not breaking the ice. So if we break up that ice shaking, we're going to have chips in the cocktail, which makes it dilute faster. So we want to stir gently. I've got my cool spoon. Look at that stag on there. Stir gently until we start to see a little bit of frost on the outside of this glass above where the water line is. You'll see. I wish I could show you, but you get it. You'll feel the glass. As soon as it starts to become cold, you're good to go. Now, you can do this on the rocks or neat. Totally up to you. I think if you're smoking a cigar, you might actually want to do this neat, like without putting it on ice, so up. Because that way the flavors are, as it warms up, those flavors are really going to open up and get a little bit more warm. They're going to get a little bit more red fruit or blackberry. That sort of thing's going to come out, which will translate to, like, as you're because your cigar is also going to change and transform as you're smoking it. So I think having the two of those, that real journey of the way your cocktail is going to evolve, and with that cigar, I think would be mind-blowing. And I really wish I could have a cigar, but I'm not allowed to smoke in the house. But I did bring some. They're sitting next to me so I can smell them while I enjoy this with the guys. And there we go. Now, if you have some cherries at home, I always want to recommend that you look, when you're buying cherries, to look on the back to see the ingredients. If it says that it has artificial colors, or if it has any like high fructose corn syrup, things like that, you probably want to go with one that's a little bit different, that doesn't have that. Again, we're using a high quality spirit, right? We're using a single malt scotch, so we've got to put good ingredients in. So we're going to put the best cherries we can find. I'm working with Luxardo cherries. Yeah, that way. These are really, really beautiful, from Italy. Just going to drop just a couple in there. If you have a skewer that you want to put them on, that's perfectly fine too. I don't want to put too much of the juice. That'll also come out and make it sweeten the cocktail, and I want it to stay slightly dry so I can enjoy it with my cigars. And that is your Glenfiddich 14 Rob Roy. Cheers! Yay! All right, I think the guys are coming back. Maybe not, we'll see. So I am spirited_Tracie on Instagram. And if you watch me, I do a thing called Spirited Shenanigans. So I tell a joke, and it's usually a bad joke or dad joke, whichever way you want to call it. And so I have a little joke for you. So I heard about this guy that's making a movie. This movie is all about watches and clocks. Like, it's really cool. I mean, the whole movie is all about time.
I love this. Thank you so much. And so I had a question on the ice. How do you keep your? I'm going to bring Alec in. Alec,
I just spilled everything all over my desk. I'm not gonna lie. But I still have a cocktail, so
Okay.
and I can't get the ice out at this point. So I'm drinking it on the rocks.
Cocktail. I love you for that. How is it?
Excellent, especially because I added too many bitters and Glenfiddich 14, so it's exactly how I like it.
Perfect. Question about the ice.
Yeah. So how do you maintain? You were saying something about not putting in chips and keeping the ice. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So usually when you're shaking a cocktail, it's because you have citrus and a sweetener. So whenever you make a daiquiri, whenever you make a whiskey sour, you shake those to combine that sweetener and that sour, usually that fresh juice. To combine those, you have to have a vigorous action, or they will actually separate. So that's why you shake. But when you shake, that ice is hitting the outside of that tin, and it's constantly breaking off shards. It's just breaking into pieces. So that spirit, like that cocktail, when you pour it out, is going to have pieces of ice, like tiny pieces of ice in it, that will then dilute into that cocktail and dilute it quickly. If you don't use that ice that you shook on, that's a first step to having a cocktail that'll last a little bit longer. But you usually see your bartenders will put it onto fresh ice. That's why they're just trying to extend the cocktail a little bit longer. And if you stir, you don't have that additional ice chips, right? You just chilled the way you need to. You have the perfect dilution. And if you pour into an already chilled glass, or just up into like a coupe or something, then it will stay at that same dilution. It will warm, but you've already chilled. So that's why I said the transformation of that cocktail, the way it evolves as it goes from warm or from cold to warm, is really beautiful. And it's, to me, very similar to the way that a cigar evolves and how those flavors warm up and open and get more rich.
Tracie, my stir was not as cool as yours, but it is still a stir.
Yes, I love it. So
I can only imagine what kind of stuff you have in the warehouse.
We
have some great Glenfiddich stuff here, that's for sure.
Yeah, and they are incredible partners. I'm so happy to be able to work with Alec and Bradley Cigars. And
thank you. I love that. Good job. That's great.
I've seen it different, but I didn't realize that was why. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that makes me very happy.
You need to come back down, and we gotta have share a cocktail soon. When
I come to town, it's trouble. It's so
bad, especially last time. That was good.
Well, my flight got delayed. My luggage got delayed. I was on time. My luggage
you were on time
for about 4 hours. I think we stopped. We smoked and drank a little bit. We drank very responsibly, of course.
Well, yeah, you were Ubering, so it's all responsible.
So Tracie, let's talk about you. Let's talk about a little bit about your background. You work for William Grant, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I work for William Grant & Sons.
And you basically you're the brand ambassador for Glenfiddich. Is that
yes.
Glenfiddich?
With a K. Even though it's like CH, that's in Gaelic. So for us, we're saying Glenfiddich so we don't spit all over people.
Glenfiddich.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's hard.
So as someone once told me, you don't go to the chiropractor.
To the chiropractor. I love that.
I like that. Yes.
This you can only get this stuff smoking cigars.
Absolutely.
Alec would never come up with this if he wasn't smoking cigars.
How about that?
What's that?
Oh. So I pulled out the Lineage.
Nice.
Smells so good.
Yeah, so Tracie's not joking when she smokes cigars. She can outsmoke me probably.
If I had enough water in the day. That's all.
Yeah.
So let's tell us about your story, Tracie. Like, how did you get into the spirit industry, and how did you end up with William Grant?
Let's do this. So it is a weird, it's an oddball story, but it also makes sense. So I actually used to tour nationally and internationally with Broadway shows. So I sang and danced and acted all over the world. There's like a third of the countries of the world, which is crazy. And when I was in New York, when I wasn't performing, I would audition for shows and then bartend at night, or whenever I could fit in, I just bartended. So bartending was paying my bills, and I just really was starting to fall in love with all the spirits and the community there. And I went back on the tour and realized I really enjoyed Scotch. I couldn't drink a lot when I was on tour because I was singing, and for me, alcohol affects my voice. So I was in a bar and somebody brought down a whiskey that smelled like dirt and seaweed and Band-Aids. And it was a peated whiskey. And I just fell in love with it. I thought it changed my life. I had never had anything like that. It was horrendous and tremendous at the same time. And that really started my journey. I just started to figure out that this category was a unique category that had such diverse flavors that I could never get tired of it. I always had something to learn. I always had a new flavor to kind of experience. And so I really started studying whiskey. My husband got a job with the football team. We moved down to Tampa, and I got a job at a whiskey bar. So I started working at a whiskey bar and became known for creating flights and educating people about the different nuances of whiskey. And my boss happened to sit down in front of me, and I did the same thing for him. And he asked for my resume, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been with William Grant ever since?
Well, so I started with other people first. So I worked with Envy. I worked with Glenmorangie and Ardbeg was actually my first job. So that was my first whiskey job, and just kind of hopped around until I found the right fit. And Glenfiddich was so accepting of what I wanted. My goal has always been to open up the whiskey category to everyone. So young people weren't really drinking it when I started. People of color weren't really drinking it. And I just wanted to show everyone that you could drink whiskey. It doesn't matter what you look like, where you're from, your politics, your sex, your nothing. Whiskey is meant for everyone. And Glenfiddich was very much in line with that messaging and wanted to empower me to do that, to really give people that opportunity to learn about whiskey.
Okay, so let's talk about whiskeys. How is Glenfiddich made? You said it's 5 generations.
Yeah.
How is that? Like 5 generations, I think about all the entrepreneurial stories, right? I mean, you look at Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, right? Rockefellers, very wealthy. Vanderbilts, totally, everything fell apart, right? Generations later. How did they maintain the business to grow over 5 generations? I mean, I think that's just fantastic and extremely difficult to do.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think even some of the practices that they put into place make it even a little more difficult to continue the business, but it makes every generation is more empowered. Every generation is more educated on the way the business works. So one of the things with them is you have to work in a corporation outside of the company before you can ever take a job at William Grant as a family member. It isn't just like you're born and you get a gig. It doesn't work that way. You have to actually work and want to be a part and bring something that is beneficial to the company. So I find that incredibly, I respect that so much. And
Thanks. I didn't have to do that for this company, so.
But you've already put in as
You're
well.
only second generation, man. If your grandkids are gonna have to go through a different platform, you know?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah, and as the family expands and gets larger and larger, you can't just give everybody a job, right? So you got to make sure the people that you're bringing in actually care about the company and its growth. And I think one of the things that they've also done is they've always had to innovate. So we are made in Scotland in a small town called Dufftown. That's actually where William Grant was born. And he placed us right near the River Fiddick. So that's where our name comes from. We're in a valley. The Conville Hills are all around us. We're in the base of the valley, right near the River Fiddick, Glen Fiddick. Yay!
Very nice. I love that. Okay.
Right?
So one cool thing about Glenfiddich that you might want to talk about, Tracie, is how when Scotch sales slowed down, Glenfiddich laid down more whiskey than anyone else at the time as an investment into the company. I mean,
that's happened continually. So during Prohibition, instead of, even though sales were low, Grant Gordon convinced everyone to put down more whiskey. So in the midst of Prohibition, we were producing more whiskey, putting it into oak, so that then when we came out, we knew everybody was going to be thirsty, so they had something to drink. And we also, in 1963, we became one of the first distillery to market as a single malt outside of Scotland. So that's something that's really particular, because in the 60s, everything was just Scotch. So whether it was a blended whiskey, which includes single malts and grain whiskey, or if it was a single malt, which is just that single distillery with 100% malted barley, they were advertised and sold for the same price. So the story is, one corporation owned all of the grain distilleries and refused to renew our license to allow us to buy grain whiskey. So we were stuck with just our single malts. And the brothers decided that instead of trying to figure that out, they were just going to market the single malt, and not just market it, but they were going to market as a separate product, as something unique and different. So they came to New York, came up with this advertising campaign, and there's this really cool picture of this guy sitting there with his cup of whiskey, and it says, "Once you sit with a Glenfiddich straight malt, you'll never stand for a blended whiskey again."
I want to see that. That's cool.
I can send it to you.
Great. I want to see that.
Yeah. So that was really that was the first campaign. It took off. We became the #1 selling single malt because we were the only one. Of course, everybody came right behind us because they had already been available. They just weren't marketing themselves as being premium and something different. So it's not like we created this whiskey. We just made it a separate category that really is now what we love and appreciate as single malts. So we are still the #1 selling single malt in the world. We are not in the US, but we are working on that. And it's hopefully with your help, people will, start to love it a little bit more. And just really, really proud. We're the most awarded single malt in the world. And that's something because that means that the juice in the bottle is good. So that's really what's more important to us. And the 14 has been incredible for us and for the United States. It was a US exclusive actually prior to this year. We now sell it also in Canada, but it's really just meant to bring some of that extra oak influence, some of that toffee that a lot of bourbon drinkers are used to, just bring that to the front of the palate and allow people to learn to enjoy single malts in a new way.
And so let's talk about single malts versus blends. How do you guys, and Alec, jump in here, please. Let's talk about blending cigars with whiskey, right? How do we do it? Let's say I know nothing. I actually don't know nothing. I think it's Plato says that all I know is I know nothing. So he's constantly learning. How do you learn about matching up cigars with whiskey?
So I do this a lot, but Tracie is just as good as I am. I think she should take this.
Well, I mean, there's different. It's honestly only reason I'm good at it is because it's a similar process that I use to pair with food.
Yeah.
Right? Or to pair with to make a cocktail.
Let's talk about that after pairing with food.
Like, it's a similar thought of, do you want something that's contrasting? So do you want to do something that your cigar is really rich and bold, and you've got a lot of notes of something heavy and earthy. So then do you want to do contrasting and then have a whiskey that's light and fruity and floral that's not going to fight with that? Or do you want something that's going to be similar, something else that has a beautiful chocolate note? So if I were to do the Glenfiddich 15, I wanted to pair that with something that's had maybe a little spice in it because those are notes that are similar. So that's really what I'm looking for. It's just whether or not I want one thing to reign, one thing to be strong. So if I have a really strong whiskey, then maybe I just want a Connecticut, a nice light cigar. And it's just like, it's not really going to play with my palate too much. But if I have a beautiful, big, rich cigar, I also then may not want a whiskey that's going to fight with that. Sometimes, though, I can go big and bold all day and just really take my time. That's when I would just sit back and spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with just that whiskey and just that cigar to see how those flavors kind of duel it out on your palate.
Yeah, so I remember when we were doing Fire and Cane, because of the peatedness in Fire and Cane, we decided to contrast a little bit and go with something that was going to just marry very well and be kind of the opposite with a little bit of sweetness and creaminess that was going to, because I mean, let's be honest, no cigar holds up with a peated whiskey.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So you have to contrast. On everything else, we kind of go complementary, but when you have something that's peated, it's almost impossible.
Let's build a night. Right?
Okay.
It's a cigar. It's a 3-course meal, right, at a steakhouse. Okay, and then we're gonna have a cigar and a whiskey after.
All right.
And we're gonna use Glenfiddich and Alec Bradley cigars, right? So we're gonna have a 3-course meal, a steakhouse, standard food, steaks and sides and all that palate, right? And then we're gonna go a little salad. We're gonna put a little salad in there just for,
it's just the bacon salad. It's not like the healthy. It's just
it's like Caesar salad's probably worse than the steak. Like it really is.
Always want to get so.
Yeah. So then we're gonna move in and we're gonna pick an Alec and Bradley cigar, and then we're gonna match it up with Glenfiddich 14. So let's go through how does that work. Like I'm trying to understand. There's a lot of veterans out there, a lot of in the audience, but there's a lot of new, trying to understand cigars. A lot of people have gotten sick too, occasionally, because they didn't know what they were smoking or pairing it. So let's talk about how to match that up. So, Alec, do you want to pick a cigar, and we'll see how what would you match up to a Glenfiddich 14?
Yeah, and let's say that it's also going to be neat, because if you were to make something like if we made an old fashioned with the 14, we'd pair that with something different. So we're going to have it. Let's do it neat.
Whatever you guys decide. You guys are running the show here.
It's easy for me because Glenfiddich 14 just has this natural bourbon sweetness to a Scotch, which is like very interesting. Glenfiddich 14 has, nice honey notes, nice vanilla notes, and some fruit notes. So I would kind of go toward a more medium-bodied cigar, toward the post-embargo, which has this nice nuttiness, nice creaminess, and the two products just kind of meld together very nicely. And I mean, I've drank Glenfiddich 14 and smoked post-embargo many a times. Probably had more Glenfiddich 14 than I had the cigar, but it is what it is, and that's just kind of the perfect marriage to me. That's where I would go with that.
Yeah, I think I the last thing I did was the black market with it, which kind of pulled the spice, the oak out a little bit more, versus going with the creamy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. The black market or the black market SLE?
No, just the regular black market.
That makes sense because that Panamanian sweetness from the Panamanian tobacco.
Yeah.
I could see that kind of melding very well with that with the Glenfiddich 14.
Yeah.
So
what I want to. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I just want to ask Tracie, what's your favorite Glenfiddich Alec Bradley pairing? Because I know mine.
I think
it's a hard question.
It is a hard question, especially because I haven't been able to get back into it recently. I got a bit of a cough a few weeks ago. And
oh no, really?
Yeah, haven't gotten my way back. So I love Prensado. Like we've talked about this.
So you're gonna go Prensado with Glenfiddich 15, is what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
You knew where I was going.
How did you know that? How did you know that? That's
because I spent a lot of time with Tracie. I know what she drinks. I know what she smokes.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with her. I know that she was going to go Glenfiddich 15 with Prensado.
I was going to try to go some other way, but that's the truth. So
yeah, that's easy. Yeah, I get it. I would do the same thing.
Okay, cool.
That's your pick too, Alec?
That's my first pick. My second pick is definitely Glenfiddich 30 with fine and rare. And if you've never had it, that's a maybe once in a lifetime experience is having those two together.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability to get Glenfiddich 30 with a fine and rare, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. I love that. That's
I'm mad
really great.
You brought out like the heavy hitter. However, mine is available every day. You can find 15 everywhere. You can.
Alec, has a finer taste in things.
I've only done it twice in my life. Okay, like it's not like something I get to do every day.
All right, fancy pants.
Twice. What about twice?
What about coffee? So something that I was so naive to, coffee and cigars. And I'm not sure why. I don't drink coffee, so I've never I don't interact with it. But what would it be like a cigar and a coffee that you would mix together?
That's very interesting. Recently, I've been getting into Central American coffees, so Nicaragua, Honduras, just because I'm down there a lot. I've been pairing those coffees with a few different things, just kind of exploring a little bit. But there's a natural sweetness to Honduran and Nicaraguan coffees that I really love. And I mean, Tempest goes perfectly with almost any coffee, in my opinion.
So it's an interesting thing because one of the things that you do when you're pairing is what grows together goes together. So if you were doing the Central American coffees, it just is inclined to go well with those same tobaccos because they've been growing in the same soil.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that necessarily helps, but that's something that I would look into for sure.
So wait. What did you say? What grows together? What was that?
Honestly, Tracie's she's got these one-liners. I gotta write them down.
So on point. Always though. It's always. I
gotta write this
every
down.
time.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, what was the line? I have to know.
Yes, what grows together goes together.
Okay, I love it.
It's just a flavor. It's something I recommend to people that are going to be pairing dishes.
Okay.
If that's from a similar region, if it's something like if they grow in that similar sort of tropical area.
So you're saying Scotch and haggis is amazing.
I do think it is amazing, actually.
I've never had haggis, so
we got to get you haggis.
Okay.
Honestly, it's so good. If it's
I can't wait to go to. I have not been to Scotland yet, but I know when I go, Tracie will be there. So
you cannot go by yourself. You cannot.
I know.
You're not going to go by yourself, but you can't go without me.
I would not. I would never. That would never happen. That would never happen.
You coming?
I'm coming. No. That's
Jimmy, are you coming?
Yeah. No. Mitch has invited me every year for like the last 6 years. It has not happened yet.
So let's talk about Scotland, right? There's so I love the history behind it. How do they actually produce and distill Glenfiddich?
Yeah, we want to talk some technical stuff. So I love that because I love to teach people about whiskey, all whiskey, and I happen to work for great Scotch company. So let's talk about Scotch. So first, we talked about this is a single malt. In Scotland, you can actually make 5 types of whiskey, and the bases are going to be either a single malt, which means it's made at a single distillery. So every single drop in that bottle was made at the Glenfiddich distillery. It's made from 100% malted barley. That's why it's a single malt. It describes itself. So single distillery, malt, 100% malted barley. We're also making it in a pot still, which means that it maintains a lot of its flavor. So pot stills are going to be the distillation on a pot still. I don't know. I'm trying to put that in there so you can see it. The distillation on a pot still is going to leave a lot of the congeners. Your congeners are where you get your flavor in your whiskey. So that's what we want to make sure that we're leaving in our whiskey by using the pot still. Grain whiskey can be made from any grain, but it's made in a continuous still. So it's these tall stills. You probably see them. Those really tall. They look steel, and they've got the little circles on the front. So, but inside of that are these plates. And basically, what's happening is the whiskey or the spirit is going to distill through each section and get pure and pure and pure. The higher it goes up that still. So you're going to take that spirit off of the top of that still. So that's going to be super pure, which means all of your flavors, your congeners, and your flavor, your fusel oils and things are going to be lower in that still. So you've got a really, really pure, light, a little less flavorful spirit. That's your grain whiskey.
That's a column still, right?
That's your column still, exactly.
So how does it work? Where does it break down? Like how do you know? So like where do you take off of this still? Like is it from the top or do you combine it all at the end? And then
so that's interesting. You actually just brought up what fractional distillation is, which is way beyond what we need to be talking about. However,
let's talk about it. Alex interested, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
taking notes.
Distillation is where you study which compounds break down by molecular weight. So basically, they're going to get to a certain point in the still. You'll know, like, okay, when it hits that 7th plate, I'm going to get this particular element, this particular flavor profile. So sometimes people will take from different plates within that continuous still and blend those together. That's pretty rare for what we're looking at, because what we're trying to do is just produce a large amount of spirit that's going to be low flavor so that we can put the malts in. The malts are our flavor, because these are in pot stills where they just distill once in that beautiful copper shape. So they're going to have a lot more flavor. So they're going to basically, the grain whiskey is your palette, and you paint with your single malts, right? Those are your colors and your flavors. So when you're doing a blended whiskey, it's a blend of those grain whiskeys with usually like 10 to 15 single malts blended together to create your Johnny Walker or your Grant's whiskey or your Dewar's. We are just Glenfiddich. So that base characteristic, that single malt, like basically we have a distillery characteristic that's going to carry on through every single bottling, because everything went through the exact same mash tun. So here's how you make whiskey. You take barley, you germinate it. So you trick it into thinking it's spring. Before it can sprout, you dry it out into a dry seed that's now sugar filled. You grind up that dry barley, you soak it in hot water, which makes this sugary water. You take that sugary water and you add yeast to it. The yeast eats the sugar, produces ethanol, and carbon dioxide and heat. You take that beer, basically you just made a beer. So we take that beer and we distill it twice. So distillation is just a purification. So you're separating your alcohol from your water, because alcohol evaporates at 173 degrees, while water doesn't evaporate till 212. So you can start to boil your beer, and that alcohol is going to evaporate first, and you'll just separate that, and that'll separate some of the water. The first distillation, you'll get to about 20-25%. Your second distillation, you're usually going to get to 60 to 70%. And that's what you take your new make, put it into an oak cask for 3 years, and you have whiskey. If you do it
Tracie, I've heard people explain that before, but that was fantastic. On point. Like I totally understand what you said. It's fantastic. That's like, Alec, what do you think?
Oh, I've heard her go through this many a time, so I understand.
It is my goal in life to break whiskey down to be simple. So I'm starting a series called Scotch is Simple, and it's taking these complicated category, like these complicated thoughts and theories around whiskey, and just breaking them down to the simple language so everyone understands, because it really is more accessible than we tend to make it. And I think that's what causes some people not to want to try it. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to do it wrong. They don't want to pronounce it wrong. And I think that has always been something that's turned people off from Scotch whiskey. And I think as long as I'm around, I'm going to make it as accessible as I possibly can. And not just accessible, but I'm also going to teach people to appreciate it, because we don't want it to be like, oh, I can get it, so I'm just going to pour it into like whatever I want. I want them to know what the work that's behind it, and to drink it and appreciate it, but to still be included in that club, in our whiskey group.
I love that. So let's talk about, so Tracie and Alec, people smoke, people drink on behaviors. They'll walk into a cigar shop, they'll walk into a bar. How is it that you stand out, or how is it that you connect with your audience for new customers or people to learn about the product?
Tracie, you want to take this first?
Sure. Well, I good or bad, I can't say, but this is definitely the product everyone's seen. Like this is the new bottle, of course. So you haven't seen that one, but you have seen.
I haven't seen that one actually. That's a new. I have Glenfiddich A12.
Right?
Yeah, I have that. Okay, I don't have that new one.
So this is our new label. So we wanted to kind of double down on where we come from. So there is a valley in the bottle.
Oh, interesting.
So we are saying Glenfiddich, Valley of the Deer.
I like your Alec Bradley badge at the top of the bottle.
Yeah.
That little red mark right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It was totally for you guys. We were thinking about you.
I know.
But also, what people should know is that we have
triangular bottles.
Yeah.
What is
Why is it a triangular bottle?
What is because
I will tell you right now, so that it doesn't roll out of the bed.
Yeah. So, well, it's not even out of the bed. So 1961 is when we took that bottle shape on. We've had triangular bottles.
1971?
61.
61. Okay.
So we've had that for a really long time. And actually it was done because there was a family member who had a bit of a drinking issue, and he had his bottles and they would just literally roll around wherever he was. He worked in the distillery and bottles were just like all over the office. They would roll under things, like get in the coal, and people were just frustrated. So he took his bottle and the family was like, we need to fix this. Like, what can we do? Someone please fix this. And instead of stopping drinking, he got the bottle changed to a triangle, which doesn't roll.
Out of the bed.
Okay, that's a total lie. Total lie. But
Alex spreading rumors.
The real truth is that it was done to signify the 3 ingredients that go into making a single malt whiskey. So,
which are?
With our barley, right? We put it into water, and then we add yeast.
Interesting.
Yeah. So those are the 3 ingredients you need for a single malt. That's all that we use. And it's a really tasty juice.
So I have one more question. What's going on with bourbon barrels, right? And this has been something that obviously, you guys do, but like wine companies and beer companies, and what is the reasoning behind bourbon barrel aging and everything like that?
So bourbon barrels we've been using them since the 60s. Basically in 63, when bourbon became the spirit of the United States, they had people who were fighting loggers, people that owned forests, were like basically fought with the government to say that you had to use barrels that were new. So when you make a bourbon, it has to be a new charred oak cask. So every time you lay down your whiskey, it has to be a new cask, which means trees have to be cut down, which kept the lumber industry in business, which at that time they needed. So then those bourbon barrels, after they used them once, they had to go somewhere. So they were actually a lot cheaper than our sherry barrels that we were previously using, European oak. So we all started to integrate more of that American oak that used bourbon barrels into our process. So that started to happen through the 60s and the 70s. We were using them prior to that, but not as much as when they finally inundated and were just being sent straight out. Like, they didn't care. They were really cheap at one point. Yeah, and now they're still cheaper than a European oak cask, but like you said, everyone is interested in them because they're in tequila, they're in wines, they're in all those sorts of things. Now, the reason you want that American oak, though, is because of the same reason that you drink bourbon, because it provides those vanilla flavors, it provides caramels, it provides a little bit of a fruitiness. That's all coming out of that American oak cask. So even though it's been used once for bourbon, for Scotch, that's actually wonderful because barley spirit's a little softer than corn. So it works better in a used cask. It's still able to pull a lot of those alcohol-soluble compounds out of that cask, but it's not as much of that char. It's not getting as much of that smoke from that first initial usage. So this one, though, we're finishing in new casks. So what you would put your new make spirit to make a bourbon into, we're putting 14-year-old Scotch in there for up to 6 months. So that's why you're going to have that additional vanilla and olive and a little bit of that oak char in the 14. So it's a really great balance of what's great about bourbon and what's great about Scotch. If you want something that's a quintessential Scotch, I recommend the 15.
I think that people that drink bourbon, it's a very easy transition to go to Glenfiddich 14 because it has a lot of those bourbon flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's been awesome, guys. Before we wrap up, I wanted to, anything else that you guys want to say? Number one, you've been fantastic. I've learned so much. I love both your brands, and thank you guys for coming on. But anything you want to add or anything you want to tell the audience before we wrap up?
I kind of wrapped up earlier. If Tracie wants to go now.
I mean, again, just if you want to follow me on Instagram, I am providing tips and tricks and jokes that are bad all the time.
No, they're good. They're good. I see them.
They are meant to provide a little bit of joy to the world. That's all it is. You know what I mean? If I can just provide a laugh for a group of people that follow me, then I've done good for the day. So that's what I'm doing. And
I think that's great.
See, I'm Spirited_Tracie with an IE. But Glenfiddich is, again, it's a family-owned company. We are investing in our future and into a lot of the communities that we are involved in. So in Scotland, we have a ton of charities that we work with. And there's going to be a new thing coming out that's going to be donating to charity here in the States. And I can't tell you because we're signing contracts now. But if you like to cook, find me on Monday. That's all I can say.
Awesome. And Tracie, before we jump off, any thought, like, how is your industry reacting to the COVID-19, and how will it respond to the future of the aftermath of it?
So we are going to respond in ways that the industry tells us that we are needed. So we are really going to be all ears right now, because we are, as a supplier, like, we are just there to support this amazing industry, these amazing bartenders and restaurant owners and bar owners and hotels and liquor stores. We're support for them. So I don't know that we're going to lead in regards to like actually setting, but we're going to lead in a way that we're going to make sure that they have all of the support and assistance they need to open. We have a fund called the Stand Fast Fund, which has been putting bartenders back to work. We've donated money to the USBG Bartenders COVID-19 fund. We are doing all sorts of that's actually what's tied to the thing on Monday. We're just trying to put programs out there that are putting money into charities and to people who actually need it right now. And then as we proceed throughout, like as we're recovering, we just want to be here in any way that anyone needs. Because honestly, we have to be open. Everyone is flexible. We are ready to be there to support, and that's all we can do.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys both. You guys have been amazing. Thank you. Tracie, if you want, send me that link. I'll share with our social media network to promote that, and especially the upcoming event as well. Send us that. We'll send that out as well. I just want to say, I hope everyone's safe, healthy, and enjoy the finer things. After what's happened, sometimes a little scotch and a little cigar is a great thing, and in moderation. And we hope everyone's is doing well. All right.
Thank you very, very much. These times call for the good stuff.
Alec, 100%. Tracie, thank you guys. You've been amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great week. And again, thank you all for coming on. All right.
Having me.
Bye-bye.